What's up, guys? I missed y'all. This is On the Horn. I'm Zach Joachim. This is your first On the Horn of the 2025-26 VCU basketball season, coming at you from the Siegel Center after the black and gold game tonight, where we got a glimpse into what Phil Martelli Jr.'s Rams will look like in his first year as head coach of this program. We played 3 segments, so it was kind of a strange format. And the first one was 12 minutes, the second one 10 minutes, the last one 6 minutes, and they were simulating end of game situations toward the end of them. And they also switched up the teams a little bit at both of the intermissions. But I think the big story from a competitive standpoint is the black team won all 3. Brandon Jennings and Tyrell Ward were on the black team for all 3 of those games, and so they went undefeated today. And we talked to Terrence Hill Jr., who also had a really good run of minutes there, especially early on in the first segment, and Brandon Jennings afterward. I'm going to write that story shortly here and get up all the takeaways from this game. And we also talked to Phil Martelli Jr. I posted one of those clips of his interview on Twitter, and I'm going to get the other couple uploaded to our Artini News YouTube here shortly if anyone wants to look at what Phil had to say after this game. He also addressed the crowd here at midcourt between the second and the third period, said some really glowing stuff about this fan base. And how unique it is that you get this amount of people, right, filling out an arena for an intrasquad scrimmage, a glorified practice and exhibition here. There's a good crowd, there's good noise in here, good excitement. The women's team scrimmaged right before, so it was good to see them as well. And I've got the box scores here. It's kind of tough to go through the box scores after this one because it's not just one game, right? It's 3 different box scores for all 3 of the periods. And I posted photos of that. But let's start with the first one. Here's the first segment. Black 27, gold 22. Brandon Jennings, 9 points. Tyrell Ward, 9 points. I think they both looked really good. And I think everyone, what I'm leading with in my story is Phil said that he tells the players all the time to make his job as difficult as they can. And they are very much succeeding in that right now because everyone wants to ask me, everyone wants to ask all the other media what the starting lineup is going to look like, what the minutes dispersion is going to look like among this group. And there's a lot of question marks, and I really don't think we got a whole lot answered today, right? But I think that's a good thing because Terrence Hill played really well. Nick Lewis had some really good moments. Ahmad Noel ended up with, 13 points, I think, in the final period, or he had 13 points in the second one for the gold team. And so all 4 of those guys who are competing for minutes right now in the backcourt had stretches in which they looked really good. And I asked Terrence and Brandon about that, and they were like, yeah, we're close friends off the court, but we are competing for minutes, and nobody's really sure who out of that group is going to start in this backcourt. In terms of the wings and the forwards, I think it's definitely more solidified. I think the prevailing sentiment is that Zach Joachim is going to start at the 5 for this group. I love his game. Statistically, he didn't really pop off tonight, but his frame is so imposing. He's a really willing screener. I asked Brandon about that, and he said it is really useful for a guard to be able to play with a big who's a willing screener, who loves to roll to the basket, attack the rim, is physical, is an imposing presence. And so I think he's locked in to start there. Barry Evans didn't do a whole lot tonight, statistically. 5 points in the final period when he was part of the gold team. And then he was part of the black team for the second period. Had 5 points there too. And then where's Barry? He was on the gold team in the first one. He had 1 point there. So 11 points for Barry Evans between the 3 periods. But I think he's going to start. I mean, a lot of what Bryant did successfully last year went through him. And so obviously his familiarity with Phil Martelli's system helps. I think he's going to start. I don't know if you can start Tyrell Ward and Jadrian Tracy. They're both kind of wings. On paper, I would say that add those 2 guys to Evans and Djokovic, and they're all going to start, right? But I'm not sure if it really works configuration-wise. Probably depends on the matchup, too, to be able to start Tyrell Ward, who's a knockdown shooter, and Jadrian Tracy, who does most of his scoring in the paint. He hit a 3 tonight as well. I think it was a step back off the dribble, so he's got a really diverse game, and he's the most experienced of all these guys too, right, from a college basketball standpoint. He's been around the block. He's won NCAA tournament games with Oregon, and he didn't come here to come off the bench, I don't think, coming from a program like Oregon, and so you'd expect him to start, but I don't know if all 4 of those guys can be on the court at the same time, and so that would reason that you start 2 out of the group of Brandon Jennings, Terrence Hill, Ahmad Noel, and Nick Lewis. I think that Ahmad has an incredibly high ceiling relative to his high school recruiting profile. The jump shot for him looked good tonight. He hit, I think, 3 threes on the night. Like I said, had 13 points for the gold team in that second period. Yeah, he was 3 of 3 from 3 in that second period. And then in the other two, he also hit a 3 in the first period. So 4 threes for Ahmad Noel. I think it was 4 of 7 from 3-point range tonight. So that's a really good sign. He's also a really physical downhill driver. And he came from UConn, and with, his recruiting profile too, I think he expects to get a lot of minutes. There's a ton of competition and depth here. I was talking to my friend Rusty Tutton. Shout out to Rusty if you're watching this, right after the whistle for that final period. And he has been a VCU fan for a long time. He's really locked into the college basketball world. And he said this is the most talented, deep VCU team that he's seen over the years. It's easy to have rose-colored glasses after the black and gold game, for sure. But Rusty knows ball, man, and he's seen a lot of good VCU teams over the years. And so I trust his takeaway there. I think it's totally fair to say that this is the deepest group they've had in a while. There's going to be a ton of competition for minutes. Michael Bell and Obi Okafor did not play. We asked Phil Martelli for a prognosis on the two of them in the post-game interviews. And Bell's is a short-term thing, thankfully. He didn't specify what the injury is for either of them, but he did say that were a regular season game, Mike would have suited up. So if this was November 3rd and they were opening against Wagner, then Michael Bell would have been in uniform tonight. So not a major injury for him. Obi is more of a long-term thing. I've heard people say what it is. I fear it's a significant knee injury. I don't want to say that definitively because it hasn't been put out there officially by VCU, but Phil did say it's a long-term injury for him, so that sucks. Obi is a great human being, a wonderful student, has been a great part of this program for the years, and he's obviously been through a lot injury-wise already, so that's really unfortunate. But nothing major for Michael Bell, who I think we all hope is going to be a contributor and play significant minutes for this team. So he should be good to go by the time the season comes around and might play next Sunday in the exhibition at Villanova, which is next Sunday at 5 p.m. So those are the big takeaways from tonight. They're also still getting used to the pace. And Phil said that. I asked, any glaring negatives from tonight, anything that he identified as a point of emphasis in these next few weeks leading into the season, and getting used to that pace that he wants to play at. Bryant was 6th nationally in adjusted tempo last year, I think number 3 in the country the year before. So they really want to get up and down, and you saw some of that tonight. But the problem is that both teams only, 6-man rotation or so, right? And so you can only play so fast when your rotation is that short. You'll certainly see that tempo pick up when you're playing an actual game or even in the exhibition next week against Villanova, and he can rotate more, because I do think this group is going to rotate a lot. So they're still getting used to the tempo. Brandon and Terrence said that's still a work in progress, but you certainly saw instances tonight where they were really pushing the pace and getting up and down the floor. Nick Lewis in particular, man, that's his bread and butter. When he gets the ball, he wants to go. I had a couple good baskets when he really got downhill in transition and attacked the rim. Keyshawn Mitchell, oh my goodness, he can sky for rebounds. I talked to Brandon and Terrence about that, and that's one of the big things I think that stood out to a lot of fans tonight. Mitchell didn't put up huge numbers, but he had a few of those rebounds where he just leapt up above everybody else. I think I saw George Templeton tweet about that. That was one of the things that really popped off just in the eye test about how athletic Keyshawn Mitchell is, and how elite of a rebounder he can be. Bless you. That was a CK sneeze there. What else stood out? Jordan Dumont looks healthy to me, which is awesome. It's been a kind of a long journey for him after double hip surgery. He's a transfer from Villanova that I think a lot of people aren't really familiar with his game so far yet. Let's look at his stats. He had 2 points in the first period, and then 3 in the second, and then 2 in the last. So didn't exactly fill up the stat sheet, but I think he looked really good, just in terms of a really diverse skill set, and being able to step out and stretch the floor, and he looked healthy, again, after having surgery on both hips. So that's really good to see. I think he's going to be a contributor for this team. And yeah, depth, competition, and still a really murky battle for minutes, but in the best way possible. It's a good problem for Phil Martelli to have. Like I said, he wants his Rams to make his job difficult, and they're doing that so far early on. So individually, I'd say Brandon Jennings and Tyrell Ward, your two biggest standouts. They won all 3 games, as I said, and those 2 guys are going to play a lot of minutes, but I'm still not sure what the starting lineup looks like. If I had to, I think it's Noel, Jennings, Tracy, Evans, Djokovic, with the caveat that it may well be Jennings or Noel, and then Ward, Tracy, Evans, Djokovic. I'm not sure if you can play Ward and Tracy together in a starting lineup, And they're both wings. I don't think either is really a true 2, but it probably depends on the matchup and depends what Phil thinks that this group needs in a given game. Lewis, Noel, Jennings, Hill are all going to get minutes in that backcourt rotation, I think. And once Michael Bell comes back, him, Ward, and Tracy all get minutes in the wing rotation. Christian Furman had a block tonight. I think he's really going to be the defensive presence down low for this team. Like I said, Mitchell's an outstanding rebounder, and Djokovic is a really imposing physical presence, and it looks like he's going to start at the 5. He hit some free throws and a couple threes tonight, too. So his ability to stretch the floor, he has a really refined skill set. I think he's set for a big season at that 5 spot for VCU. So fun stuff at the Black and Gold game tonight. It's awesome to be back in the Siegel Center. Said hey to some fans who thanked me for the coverage, and I appreciate that immensely. I love my job. I love covering VCU, and thank you guys so much for watching. This is Zach Joachim. This is On the Horn, and I will see you guys next Sunday after the Villanova exhibition.